Hello and welcome to Spoken Openness. This is the show we talk about sports. Today we got some scores in from yesterday. We're looking at the NBA. Things were heating up in the NBA here. We had the Celtics and the Grizzlies. They fought it off. The Grizzlies took the lead at 132 to 126. Jumping out of the NHL. Ooh, this looks like a rough. It looks like a rough game here. We had the Golden Knights. They beat the Blues by 4. The Golden Knights came in at 5, and the Blues they just seem to get one point in there. And moving on to highly contested sport going on here in Germany, we have the men's Challenger Series of ping pong. We've got here Semenov A from Russia beating Kuzmin F by 1 point. And I've been watching this game really closely. I've been following Blum F from Germany. He took a 3-0 lead over P. Echerbar from Slovenia. And that's all for the scores. I think we got some news. Do we have some news here today?
Unfortunately, we do. We do have some news.
What's
yes.
going on? You sound a little down. What's happening?
Yeah, as you probably know by now, the Scripps National Spelling Bee is canceling its 2021 national finals.
Canceled?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not good news.
Can you believe that?
This is not good news. What's going on?
It is not good news at all. The community is really, really sad right now, and we should all feel for them because this is major news in the sports world.
Yeah.
You know, and they're doing it due to the ongoing concerns about the spread of the coronavirus, the COVID-19 thing that's going around. Have you heard about that?
Oh yeah.
And you know, there's a lot of uncertainty around when public gatherings will be possible or advisable, and this is what is being discussed right now in the community. And
I'm sure
I just want everyone to know. I am following this very closely. And I was very eager to just tell everyone who's a real fan of spelling bees that these are hard times. These are very, very hard times that we all have to go through. And, you know, there's one fact that I was hesitant to share with all of you, but this year's marks this event, this cancellation, marks the only time it's happened since basically 1943, since World War II.
That is a blow. That is a really big blow to the community and the event. Well,
so since the program's inception, bro, 1925.
Yeah, it's
second time it's ever been canceled. And well, just to end the news in some more positive tone, do you remember last year when we had Octochamps?
Yes,
we actually had 8 winners in the finals, and first time ever that the judges ran out of words.
I remember that.
And it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yep.
It was a beautiful experience, and I actually was there front row.
Beautiful.
I will never forget that, and I'm working very closely on a documentary about that night.
Very nice.
And yeah, I hope to share that with everyone pretty soon.
Well, thank you very much for the news. This here today is Spoken Openness, episode 25. And to continue on with this sports show, I would like to start it with the quote, and that is, quote, "The punishment of desire is the agony of unfulfillment." And that is from Hermes Trismegistus in Poimandres, which is along the chain of Hermetic philosophy and Hermetic thought. So I'll say that one more time. It's the punishment of desire is the agony of unfulfillment.
Wow. I don't know what to think about that. I actually have a lot of thoughts around that. So, analysis paralysis right now.
Yeah, it reminds me of the it reminds me of the Buddhist notion of that the core element of of existence, of human existence on Earth, or of experiencing life, is, lots of people say suffering, but I think I've heard that a more accurate translation was that it's unsatisfactoriness.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so it mirrors that notion. And I don't know too much about the history, or kind of if we're looking at parallel developments or a common history. That stuff fascinates me a lot. I don't really have the info on that, but it's a pretty, this statement isn't saying that the fundamental element of existence is unsatisfactoriness, but it's still agreeing kind of with part of the solution of the, is it the Eightfold
Hmm.
Path?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
What do you think about
yes. I mean,
what do you think about the statement that a core element of existence is unsatisfactoriness, that's like the general state, sort of, or a general state? And then,
I agree, but now we, I think we'd have to engage in a conversation between definitions between satisfaction and suffering,
unsatisfactoriness.
unsatisfactoriness.
Yeah.
So, do you have a very simple, boiled down definition
I don't, but
for unsatisfactoriness?
I can
Can I
try to
try to
come up with
put
it
you on the
in the
spot
spirit
so
of the
that you
cast.
try? Yes, attempt, please.
I think, what are we looking for? Suffering and unsatisfactoriness.
Yes, I brought
Yeah.
up suffering because you
Yeah.
related that to the Buddhist tradition, and most texts I've read use the word suffering
Right.
as as a basic characteristic of existence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the unsatisfact the suffering thing seems to be, in the way I think of it, or how I remember, or I don't know, just my answer right now is this, is the
Yeah.
idea that suffering is like a blanket term for, it's more of like a feeling, and so is unsatisfactoriness, but unsatisfactoriness is linked to satisfaction, which is, satisfaction occurs when you, I guess, get something that you want, or something that you would like. And so it connects more closely with what the solution is, or the reasoning that is given for why people have unsatisfactoriness or suffering, is because people have attachments, and it has to do with attachments to wants or needs or material possessions or desires. It has to do with desires. And so unsatisfactoriness is the feeling of, oh, I don't have these things, or I don't have what I want, or I'm not close to getting what I desire or what I identify with. And so because of that, and because that's just a part of being human, because we're aware of what we have and what we don't have, and we can compare ourselves to others, and we can think about the future, and we can say, well, we can consider these things, then it's sort of a blanket human experience, which is, there are an infinite number of things that I wish I had that I don't have, or that I want or need, and so I don't have those, and so I'll constantly experience a level of unsatisfactoriness. And that is correlated with sort of suffering, because you kind of suffer because of that. But unsatisfactoriness is it's like a more pinpointed definition, because it is more closely related to the solution or the prescription.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
this quote is saying the punishment of desire is the agony of unfulfillment, and that's kind of the same thing. It's like, if you're going to desire, you'll be punished by having a feeling of unfulfillment, which is
Absolutely.
that feeling of unsatisfactoriness, I feel like.
And that raises the question: is there such a thing as living without desire? And so, are you proposing that that desire is also a basic operating mode, or something that plays, that is programmed on the very core of individuals, or um, or are you talking about the little things, the wants, the desire, the wants, the nice to haves, or are we talking about deep psychology? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like I'm taking the position of an answer guy right now, so I'll just continue and then I'll ask,
Please,
and then I'll try
yes.
to reverse it.
Then we'll
But
switch.
I feel like it's just, I think it's a really deep element of what humans experience since we've emerged out of unconsciousness into consciousness as Homo sapiens. That
Okay.
part of the part of the if it's there's both, and if it's part of the cons, or an element of it is a con of being a conscious and aware animal, because when you're conscious and aware
Yeah.
of you and others and things that you could have, if you're able to imagine something that you could have that you don't, and to understand that if you had that you would feel better. And I would say that there's another conversation about how that element has been not hijacked but catalyzed, and like, and if it was a fundamental part of our evolutionary psychology, somewhat embedded in our physiological systems, that it's been like massively abused by, say, like the century of self stuff and what people call like Western materialistic obsession or whatever. But
Yeah.
you could imagine anybody at any time. I I wanted to get something on this hunt and I didn't. I wish I had caught to whatever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so I think it's
We're
fun.
always evolving. Is that it?
No.
Okay. So we're always looking. No.
No. No.
So then I might be misinterpreting what you're saying,
Sure.
because
Yeah.
if since the beginning of time we're always trying to
Yes.
be better at hunting, or be better, a little better at survival, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
then that's desire being there from the very beginning, that desire to become the next thing.
Yes.
That's why I mentioned evolution. So we're always
Yeah.
evolving. And if we're always evolving, then we always have a desire for the next version of ourselves, both individually and as a collective. And
Yes.
unless we don't have that desire for improvement, bettering ourselves, the next version of everything we're doing.
Well, yes, I agree. And
Yeah, I mean,
you need
that's
to,
always being not satisfied with your current state, so that you
right.
can reach the next one.
Yeah, I think and it could be a chicken and egg situation, but I think it is. I mean, it is like the first thing must be that unsatisfactoriness. It's like, this is horrible. I wish this was better. How can I make this better? Here's an
Okay.
idea that my consciousness
Yes.
just somehow created out of nowhere from imagination, just coming, who knows from where. How about I try this? Maybe this will help. I imagine it would help. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
then and then like you said, you can try it out, and then we get better with technology, we get better with our tools for eliminating certain elements of our feeling of unsatisfactoriness. But I think that, the switch,
But yeah.
that happened, or I think a big underpinning of, say, like the 60s hippie rejection of the 50s materialist dogmatic viewpoint, was hey, there's other that like being too attached to material things of of comforts, say, and these things are what's gonna help reduce my unsatisfactoriness, that's a little bit of a lie. That some of that's a lie, and the century of self stuff like advertising, like you will be happier if you have this thing or this thing, and it's not just this is a good one because it won't break and our parts are good, but it's you should get this because you're going to feel happy and people are going to like you more and your status is going to go up, and you're going to be a better person if you own this thing, and
Yeah.
that the that there's a that there's some truth, but it's like it's a lie that the Buddhist notion is that your attachment to the possession and saying these things are gonna make me happy, or then you're always gonna not have the better thing, or you're always gonna be behind. Nothing is gonna
Hmm.
quell the unsatisfactoriness, because under
You're
that
always chasing
notion,
that.
or as I'm trying to interpret it as answer guy, is that it's not gonna go away. That's always there unless you
Hmm.
deal with the desire and the needs and the attachment, um, which I don't which
Yes.
but and this is a discussion we can have, and I can end kind of answer guy here, but this is ending with a question: is how is that related to improvement and to evolving in some way? Because you need to have some attachment to desire, otherwise you don't progress, you don't move forward, because
Hmm.
you need to be unsatisfied with something and then imagine something that could be better and then move towards it, and you need that system. If you just were if a proto hominid early human ancestor was just satisfied and wasn't attached to their identity or their being or being alive, and they made
Yes.
this like nirvana state meditation, and they were like, okay, I don't I don't need to.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
feel like these images are all so unrealistic, but I don't need to defend myself from this carnivorous animal with fire because I'm not I don't identify
Exactly.
with a human being. I'm a
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
infinite being that whatever, I'm going to be
Just
dissolved
observing.
into, yeah. Just observing,
Hmm.
like, okay,
Hmm.
eaten by an animal.
Yes. 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 Yes.
You
This
know
is
what I mean?
happening.
Yeah.
Not happening, but not happening to me. This is just happening.
Right.
Right.
We wouldn't have progressed at
So
all. They'd all
if
die, literally.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No evolution.
No. Done. Yeah. So it's like a stalling mechanism almost. If you truly, and now we're basing this on maybe my straw man interpretation of the Buddhist tradition, but I think there's something in here about,
But we're following the reason. We're
yeah,
following the logic here.
sure, yeah, we're following some logic, even if some of the propositions are
Even if it's faulty logic at times.
sure.
We're attempting to remain coherent.
We can play with it whether it's true or not, you know.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a dilemma, okay? Here's a
Yeah.
contradiction. Here's opposing thoughts that maybe lead to a both and scenario or some kind of possibility within the contradictions, okay?
I love it. Both end is great.
If satisfaction somehow equals stagnation or lack of progress, so basically it's almost like the end of future. It's close to focusing just on living in the present
Yeah.
and be completely satisfied and at peace with everything that's going on.
Hmm.
And first of all, that raises the question: is that a possibility, or
Right.
is that a thing that many people have attempt to reach for a lot of time and like attempt to suppress ego, suppress desire, suppress
Yes.
everything that wants you to either judge or act upon or or
Yeah, and the people who are
yeah,
striving to do that are striving to reach a place that they've just imagined that, say, being in the present means. And so even if
hmm,
they get there, it's still their interpretation of what they think that even means, as an aside.
exactly, I agree. And then on top of that, you are attempting to disengage from something that is inherent to human existence,
Hmm.
and so that is a desire itself. Uh, you know what I mean? So if you have a desire
Right,
to
right, right,
end
right.
desire,
Yeah.
you will live in contradiction forever. It seems to me,
Right. Yeah.
because if it's natural for humans or minds to to what is it? I mean, everything. Just think and act upon reality so that
Hmm.
we can modify it
Yeah.
to our ideal. And that ideal thing is, of course, a whole other conversation. But
Hmm.
just talking about,
Hopefully a
do we
reduction in
even?
suffering.
Mhm.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's not just that existence is uncomfortable. It's not that, it gets cold at night, we get hungry, and
Yeah.
we need to produce so that we
Yeah.
eat, etc. It's not just that there's basic, very uncomfortable things about life that we need to fix, like heating and shelter and basic needs.
Yeah,
It's
but no.
also
Yeah.
a psychological phenomena, a cognitive
Hmm.
process, which is what fascinates me and in this exploration.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking about why can we say such statements as the observer is being observed,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
I am not the one who thinks, or
Yeah.
my mind is part of my consciousness, or I know this concepts like
Right. And
self
attempting to
awareness or just
and attempting
awareness.
to attempting to be in that seat, or the seat of awareness, or the observer seat,
Yeah.
and to not judge the thoughts that come and go. Some of those thoughts might be, hey, there might be this element of unsatisfactoriness for this thing, and if you did this, maybe it would reduce that, and then it would benefit you not to just observe that, but to, like, take it on and to
Hmm.
use it and to identify with it insofar as it allows you to be motivated to work towards a thing.
Yeah.
And I
Hmm.
think it's funny, that idea of, like, if you are striving towards undesire that is a desire in
Hmm.
itself. It's almost like that's the, like, if we can associate or use the notion of give one free miracle and we'll explain the rest. It's almost like a version of that, where it's like, give me one desire and then the rest
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
be free of, but give me one, and the one is to be free of desire.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
It is, but it is also dangerous.
What's dangerous?
And I might attempt to explain why it's
Okay.
dangerous.
Okay.
It is dangerous to choose either or, I think. To choose to live outside of the contradiction, outside of the balance that is the both and between future, past, and its balance in present moment, in present
Hmm.
existence, but not in choosing to remove past and future and just be observer 100%,
Right.
which it's debatable to first you can you achieve it,
Hmm.
or is it all just an attempt to suppress, a constant attempt to suppress, right? And um, it's dangerous to think that you can suppress desire at will, and also it is dangerous to not attempt to suppress desire at all. And this is where I think the solution.
Can you explain both of those? Why is it dangerous for the one and why is it dangerous for the other?
And then solution?
Sure.
I think I have a proposition for possible solution.
Great.
Or a mindset that allows for both realities to coexist. If you try to suppress desire, as we said, that's a presupposed desire in itself. And then that can lead to an infinite loop. I think that's dangerous because it prevents you from progressing on
Definitely
areas of yourself that, I mean, this is also debatable, but we could say that it is one of the reasons that you're here right now. We could say that. I mean, I don't want to go there, but it seems to me that there's a sense of you have a responsibility to become someone. I'm not sure who that one is, but if you're perfect as you are, then I think you are being very egocentrical. I mean, that seems highly narcissistic to be like, I'm perfect as I am right now, and I'm just going to exist as I am right now forever onwards. You're not going to work on all of those things you need to work on.
But I guess the way around that, or the reason why I guess someone seeking that approach is, it's not that I'm perfect as I am, it's that I'm not me as what's considered to be me. What's me is what I'm considering to be things that I'm attached to in my identification with myself.
I am not the observer.
I am the observer. And the observer is not...
I am what is aware of the observer.
Yeah, you're taking it a step further back.
Okay, yes. We're saying the same thing. I agree.
Yeah, we're saying the same thing. You're just going
playing with words. And,
you're going back one.
Back.
One observer. You're going back one observer.
Yes.
But
just one dimension.
Yeah, but
enough.
I just wanted to mention that I guess the claim would be, if you get to a certain place or enough observers back enough, then you aren't you. You're the same thing that everybody else is, and that thing is perfect in some way because it doesn't have the clothes and the weight of identification and attachment and needs and wants. That thing just is. This is the narrative, and that thing is just the seat of pure existence and awareness, and that if other people found that place, you would literally be somewhat the same, and you would share a lot more than if you adopted the identification. But so first one. So
I think I have a solution, bro. It's making sense in my mind.
Okay, but I think we only got one. I only am. Maybe I wasn't listening carefully enough. But it's dangerous to try to disassociate yourself from that thing that is wanting and needing and desiring, because it means you are reducing your ability or limiting your ability to imagine ideals in the future and to work towards it and to acknowledge where you are and where you could be, to even have that framework, because you're observing whatever and you're letting it be whatever it is without using it or observe.
It's too risky to just ignore all the other processes.
Sure.
I mean, it's important for you to be able to sit and be at peace with yourself and detach yourself from everything else except your own experience with your own self, and have that experience.
Or the meta self.
If you take it to the extreme where you just want to be there as much as possible and be the monk in the cave, then I think that's what I'm saying. It's dangerous to go to the extreme. And then the other extreme is just to disregard that experience of of neutrality or I don't know.
Sure. And why is that dangerous?
Because it also leads to a sense of lacking the other part of the equation, disregarding that whole reality,
Why is
which
that dangerous?
exists outside of your own mental intellectual reality, and if you're only living there, I mean that's the definition of unfulfillment.
Right. So
The
then
agony.
you'll
That's the agony
only
of unfulfillment.
so you'll only be aware of your desires and your needs and the things that you have and don't have, and
Yes, you're only aware of all your lacks and
maybe you're not only aware of that, but you're
mistakes.
much more embedded
Their
in those
priority.
things than you would be if there was more balance.
The focus is on those things, I guess, on how can I become more, always more fulfillment, and then, that pursuit is the root of unhappiness, as we might. But now we're talking about happiness, and this might get a little bit confusing, because, yeah. But so here's the thing: if you choose your battles, you have a much better chance of living a balanced life
Yes.
between fulfillment and unfulfillment.
And I would like to bring in a
yeah.
second quote here.
Okay.
And that is from Jiddu Krishnamurti, and the quote is, quote, "The
JK.
ability to observe without evaluating is the highest form of intelligence." Quote, "The ability to observe without evaluating is the highest form of intelligence," end quote. So one thing I'd like to say is that
Yeah.
in this, there's sort of inbuilt a notion that we want the highest form of intelligence. Do we want the highest form of intelligence? Is there kind of a value judgment on, well, if observing without evaluating is the highest form of intelligence, is that what we want, the highest form of intelligence? And then I also want to bring up the question that, or based on what we've been talking about, the solution would be, instead of that the ability to observe without evaluating is the highest form of intelligence, the ability to observe, to be aware of the desires and wants and where you could go, not to judge your current place as being negative, but being aware of the future possibilities and to utilize the observations of where you are and what you want, and choose which ones you would like to identify with more in order to direct yourself, move towards, and head towards some of those wants and desires in a very particular and purposeful way.
Right. And I agree with that. Also, I think that what Krishnamurti is referring to when he's saying evaluating, to observe without evaluating, I think that evaluation is the intellect, your mind putting a tax on everything and comparing everything with everything constantly, so that you can understand the world a little better. But I think most of that is reactive, as we've already touched on. And if you observe without evaluating, then it's not that you're not evaluating anymore. It's not that you're not thinking anymore, but you're just one step back from that and trying to be aware of those patterns. And so,
so in that
as
sense,
we already talked about, that leads to intuition, or I think that's the higher intelligence in this case, related to intuition.
Yeah. So in that sense, I totally agree with that, with the statement then. In that context.
In that context, of course.
If evaluating is the need to immediately gut react and to judge and to identify with every single one of the
Yeah.
thoughts that are occurring and changing. That's not good. That's what we were talking about of the con
Not good, right?
of never being in that seat back, which whatever that whatever that is. We don't know what that is. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
maybe
And I
it's a,
think,
maybe I
yeah.
mean maybe the thing that we aren't realizing is that the brilliance of, say, Eastern mysticism or religious philosophies is an imagined place in the mind that has been, like I said, imagined, created, and then attempting to go into that imagined place actually happens and actually has benefits. And that's magic and that's cool. That
Yeah,
would be really cool
absolutely. Yeah.
if like this whole thing about the observer and the seat back and going one observer back, if those are
Mm-hmm.
just inventing a place in the imagination and then actually being able to go there and then use it, that's so then we're in the discussion of whether or not that's real or not, but it doesn't matter if it's real or
Yeah.
not because
It
if you
doesn't
can
really
do
matter.
it, it's useful.
It's useful.
And that's
Exactly.
pretty trippy because if you can do that, if that is not a real place and it's just imagined and you're generating that imagination and then using it as a tool, it's like, well, if that's possible, then what else is possible?
Yeah, I think that's
You know?
that's a whole
That's a different angle. That's
thing
a
around
yeah.
around neurological phenomena and something around um, neuronas
Placebo.
espejo, mirror neurons. Have you dived into that?
I've
Am I
read I
am
remember
I am
reading
I
different
telling you?
books that say mirror neurons, but I don't remember what
Is that a
they
thing?
are. It
Yeah,
definitely is a
yeah.
thing. I don't know
Mirror
what.
neurons.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, so I don't know. The ability to observe yourself is pretty crazy that exists, and if we
Right.
actually invented that, if we came up with that, or rationally, if we came up with that rationally
Yes.
through
Designed
thought
it almost.
processes,
Designed it.
almost designed it
Yeah.
exactly. That's pretty crazy.
That's crazy.
But that might also be the root of the whole thing, the whole problem. So the problem is that meaning the unfulfillment problem. And I think going back to choosing your battles, I wanted to emphasize that because in my mind right now, that's the best strategy to not choose sides, just choose your battles. So try to find a
Yeah.
balance that really works for you and it's aligned with what
Totally
is
agree.
meaningful for you, because every battle you choose will you will have to go through the suffering of that battle. You will have to go to war, basically. And I guess another analogy is a contract. So every desire you have is like making a contract in your own mind, and it's like you stick it in there, and it's
Yeah.
there until either you fail or succeed to
Right.
that desire.
Or
And
and
yeah,
it's
so maybe the less the better also, but zero is not. But
right.
don't get to zero, right?
And
Maybe
we could also
uh,
maybe conceptualize it as yeah, if we're in the framework of the seat of awareness, the seat of awareness. If we're talking about the seat of awareness and that's a place where you're detached from identifying with your thoughts and you're seeing things come and go and then if we're talking about pick your battles, then it's almost like I'm going to decide to take this on as an identity
yeah,
so I can
yeah. Who
so I
do I
can
want to become,
yeah, so
right?
it's like which of these desires do I want to be basically? Part of your
Yeah,
a sub personality is going to be I am a thing that doesn't have this and I want this, and that's I adopt that as like a little personality, like a little guy that you put in your head, and the only thing that guy yells about is I don't have this thing and I want this thing. That's the only thing that little guy is always yelling about. and you say, okay, I'm deciding to put this little guy in my head and to listen to him because, or to be him partially, because that's going to motivate me to try and make this change. And I've decided from my slightly separated observer mind that that will be good for everyone, for all of the other subpersonalities, and for my, for the human animal, and for my psyche, and for the unsatisfactoriness and everything on the whole.
Yeah.
I've decided that this guy is going to help me get to a place that will be better for everything
Yeah.
and for everyone. And then that decision comes from your ideals and your hierarchies of value and those things. But
For sure.
yeah.
And maybe it's just a game that's fun to play. I mean, maybe we were just very, very bored before we started wanting to become better, or the next version, or started.
I don't think it's bored. I don't think it's
Maybe
bored.
everything was so boring that we were
No.
just like, let's play this game of future thought and try to become things.
I don't think. I wonder, like, boredom, I think, requires a level of comfort. Maybe, and we could maybe discuss that. But I don't think
agree,
I
I
don't think
agree,
you're
and I don't
bored
think we
when
ever
you're
had that, really.
dying all the time and starving.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I think you're not bored. You're like, how do I fix
If
any
you're
of these
enlightened,
things?
if you're enlightened, maybe you are. I mean, we kind
Yeah.
of touched on that. If you're
Yeah.
if you're not already in that mode, if you're not already
Right.
trying to survive,
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't have that, what is it that
If you're purely detached from your wants and needs, and you're just
Exactly.
existing, and you think
you don't
that
have the
you're-
technology to try to modify or escape, you're just
Yeah.
in whatever reality is occurring at the moment.
Yeah.
Right? And that I mean, maybe that means that you don't eat at all. And then how do you? How? Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get food, even if it's from a tree. And so that how can you have a state where all you're doing is
Oh yeah. Well.
the felt presence of direct experience.
Right.
As
I love
McKenna
that.
used to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
If I mean, it's a contradiction in terms, because
Yeah.
you wouldn't have a 40-year-old person just sitting there in that state
Yeah.
without the need to
You can't.
survive. And
can't
so
escape it.
You can't escape it. So
Well,
yeah.
but that's, I mean, and that's the claim, right? That's the Buddhist claim, is you can't escape unsatisfactoriness. You can't escape it, no matter what you do. Even if you're a monk, or
you
even
die
if you
with ego as you're born with it.
you can't escape it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So on that light note, about
Very light. Yeah.
very light note.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot here, I think. If I'm going to think about, I think what we were just getting to, I think I'm going to think about, there are two things there. One is the kind of protocol we thought about, which is like the both and of not being in one of those places and not being in the opposite, but choosing what things, pick your battles, as, choose, like you said,
Yeah.
choosing what things you might want to identify with to, or what of those subpersonalities you choose to identify with to motivate yourself towards reaching something that you think is better for all things involved.
And also
that you
knowing that the
value.
more greedy you get with that, the more unfulfillment that's associated, right?
Sure. Yes. Yeah. And then also, and maybe we could pick this wave up sometime, is the idea that maybe this whole process was invented, and it's like, maybe there is, because you could argue that if you are if you can go to an observer place, that can either be a real place or that can be an imagined place. I don't know, we don't understand consciousness or the imagination, or to even
Right,
know
yeah.
whether or not that's, you're tapping into maybe a system or a reduction. Like, let's imagine we can go back into a state of mind that maybe we lived in, one of our ancestors, and that when we go to the seat of awareness or whatever, we're actually going to a real structural evolutionary place that we were in at one point of not having this rest of our mind activating, and maybe we but the idea that something like this could be imagined, invented, and then used, and that millions of people throughout history could have benefited in certain ways from this basically magic trick, like that's chaos. Like that's kind of chaos magic, or that's magic. That's like purely using your imagination to go to a place and then using that place, and then like that's crazy to think about. I've never thought about it that way, in that way before.
That's crazy. I mean, that's everything from nothing right there. I mean, just one thought that rises from who knows where can lead to everything.
Yeah.
So maybe we're just like, one thought of the divine presence. No, just kidding.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the Hermetic philosophy is that we are in a mind, that the universe is a mind.
We are being pronounced by the one.
Yeah.
We're being chanted by the one. We are his one verse, the universe.
Nice.
Nice.
Nice. That's good, man. I like that. Well,
so
thanks for the convo.
For sure. Thanks for the convo, and see you in 26. I think this was a great convo.
I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah, I would like to continue on.
I think we touched on. Yeah, exactly. We can expand it for sure. On me, a big thing was the. I mean, I'm saying this for the third time, but the choose your battles, desire minimalism. If I dare to say that, nice. as a concept, desire minimalism. Yeah, or just take it one step at a time, one desire at a time. Make a promise to yourself to improve something, see how that goes, then choose something else. I think that, I mean, just trying to make it practical and useful. Bring it back to a simple strategy instead of trying to attack 10 desires at a time. Pick one, maybe see how it goes. Pick another after that.
Or at least be conscious of how many, like really look at yourself and be conscious of how many you're identifying with it now.
Agree.
And
that's one step.
At least have a plan.
Just
at least
not
have a
even
plan.
Caring. Yeah.
And maybe the plan is one. Maybe the plan is 3 little ones. Maybe it's a practice that you play around with. But at least be aware of where you're at and where you want to and what. It's just another process, and maybe we're doing that thing where we just imagine reality and then we use it as a tool to and maybe that's everything. Maybe that's what it means to be human, is to imagine tools and to use them to improve our life and to reduce unsatisfactory-ness, which we're trying to do right now. And
or maybe or you know what I'm thinking, maybe it's just, and I'm gonna leave that as a final touch for maybe next wave, but maybe we just don't want to die. Like at all, not even a little. Like maybe
I don't know where that comes from, but
maybe it's just fear of death.
I mean, that's a given, right, bro?
That makes us. I mean, it might just be fear of death that makes everything turn around.
Yeah, I don't think that's true. I think we forget about it all the time.
Forget about death?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of.
Until you're around the corner, then you start running.
Yeah, but I think a lot of our desires and needs are under the impression that we live forever. I don't think we think about. I think we think that, like you brought up, like this is a massive wave. This is a massive wave, but I think that this is a whole big concept at the very end. But I think that, you think that if you get a thing, then that's gonna make you happier. And why would you do that if you're gonna die? Why would you do anything if you just keep remembering that you're going to die? You wouldn't be motivated to do anything.
Because you can do things so that you don't die.
No, you
can try the attempt to not die, to evade death.
Yeah, I really don't think that motivates
that's huge,
people.
bro. Oof, I think it's the motivator, the great motivator. You're gonna die.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't know.
All right.
I love this disagreement.
Thanks for the convo.
Likewise.
Pick this up soon.